This is episode 59 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode, Wasey and myself have our monthly sit down with Aron Snyder. We basically ensure we can't get sponsored by anyone else in the industry and just probably make some people mad. This podcast is brought to you by Kafaru International, the toughest hunting gear on the planet, bar none. Frontiersman gear, high quality, completely custom, handmade knives made in the heart of the Peace Country. And as always, we're brought to you by Just Shooting Arrows, BC's premier archery shop.
What's your first hunt, Aaron? Where you go alpine muleys or
antelope and buffalo, but that doesn't really count as a hunt because it's like shooting your neighbor's dog. But antelope, and then I'm gonna whack a couple buffalo while I'm there, and then high country mule deer, and then I'm back for a couple days, and then we go for elk with south, and I think you said that's 7 or 8 miles in, and then we get back from that, and I got a mountain goat hunt, and then I come back from that, I got another elk hunt, and then and then I got to help my wife get an antelope with a gun, and then and I'm forgetting a couple in the middle there, and then I got to go guide a couple mule deer hunters, and then I think I go to Oklahoma for whitetail, and then Texas, and then I come back for a mule deer hunt after that. So yeah, it's pretty fucking jam-packed until Christmas, and then I guide from January, February, and March, April with Scotty. So
yeah, that's fucking wicked.
Out of all that stuff, what are you most looking forward to?
Probably that elk hunt and the high country mule deer hunt's always a good one, even though I got to deal with fuckheads running around all over the mountains scaring shit away. And the physical abuse is pretty bad. The goat hunt, man, I'd like to think that would be, but I don't know what I've got myself into. I'm going with it's one of my wife's friends' husbands, and he's a friend of mine too.
Oh shit.
But he scheduled it, and he's never been on a hunt, and he asked like 7 million questions. And then he finally told me I'm using a rifle, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'll have 11 days to hunt. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because it's only going to take a fucking day to kill a goat with a rifle, dude. They're dumber than shit. It's like grocery shopping. And I said, but that gives me 11 days. And so I don't know, I'd really like to shoot, like a 6+ year old, just a giant goat, but I don't know. I don't know shit. I don't know what the population's like. I've heard it's good. I don't know size wise what it's like. So it'll be interesting.
Where's that?
Alaska.
Oh, wicked. I've been working my ass off with the stick bow the last year. That way, you won't make fun of me for shooting a wheelie bow the rest of my life, and follow me on Instagram, be my best friend. But
Ty, hold on. Ty's always like, fucking Snyder's not following me yet. Fuck, he's like, tell him to give me a follow, that fucker.
I'm not very good at keeping up on all that shit.
Oh, dude, I get it.
No,
I get it.
We're the same.
Everybody and your dog is messaging you about stupid shit all the time.
I just figured out yesterday I wasn't following Bob Lee.
I get irritated for you on your Q&As. I stopped asking you shit in them. I'm like, I'll just phone him if I have a question, but this guy gets enough dumb shit asked.
I think the most asked on Q&A for Snyder is, what's the best 5 or 7 to 10 day backpack? I mean, that fucking question gets asked 100 fucking times.
Mm-hmm. It's weird for me because I figured, I say but I mean the majority of this shit I figured out on my own. And so I figured out that going a smaller pack, even though it sounds cool for pound your chest, I went 10 days with a 3,800 cubic inch pack and whatever. I figured all that out. And so, not to say everybody's going to follow my lead with, everybody's got a different way of doing things, but, I try to make it in giant blinking bright letters. I have never come down the trail and said, man, I wish my pack was smaller, ever.
No.
But I've come down that motherfucker saying, I wish my pack was bigger, a lot. And so when people are like, well, I'd really like to go smaller, Cause I'll just, put stuff in it. And I'm like, well, have some discipline. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but you're going to need that size. Well, I'm just going to fill it up then. I'm like, well, that's not my fault. You can't pack accordingly. Like, you got to have some discipline when you pack.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. I hear that a lot, but it's like, man, you may need that size packing an animal out. And then guys are like, well, I'm just going to use a meat shelf. And it's like, well, yeah, you can do that. But what if you have to use a meat shelf and pack some of your buddy's gear? Or what if you don't want to take the time to use the meat shelf? And honestly, I feel on bigger packs, the meat shelf's more uncomfortable. It's better to put it in the bag. So, that's from trial and error. And that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to listen to me, though.
Yeah. I went through that like small pack battle, and then you shoot something and you're like, okay, guess I'll leave all my shit here while I walk this thing out, or I don't know. Like you said, you can always use that extra space. You never like, oh, I sure wish I didn't have room for stuff. So
yeah,
I just run a hoodlum full time now, and I just suck that bastard down flat whenever I'm day hunting,
Yeah. Well, and that's I get them free, so I can use all of them. And I pretty much use 2 backpacks. I use a striker when I'm out east or Alberta or guiding or whatever down in Texas. And then, I use a hoodlum or I mean, honestly, this year I'm using the Dull and the Nargali, but, I just one big pack and one day pack, and you can get away with just about anything with that. And you certainly could do it with just one big pack if you know what I mean, if you didn't have the funds, which I get. I mean, if I would buy a hoodlum if that was the one pack I needed to use for everything.
Yeah. I was starting to say, I've been working my ass off the last year with the stick bow, getting ready for this goat hunt, because I got Waste Dog every day on the phone harassing me. And I got you talking smack about the wheelie bow on here. So here I go, stick bow, and then I drew a freaking rifle tag in the unit that we're hunting.
Oh, dang.
So,
that's funny. Well,
yeah.
you could still shoot it with a bow if you wanted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a 20-to-1 tag in a ridiculous unit that a lot of big goats get killed in. So, I mean, even all of the hardcore archery guys that I know that have hunted that unit and shot some book billies and stuff like that, they're like, dude, just bring a rifle. Like, you're going to be pissed if you see a giant billy and you can't get to it with your bow. And, I don't know. So I think I'm packing a rifle with us anyways. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and I just wrote an article about this that I don't know if you could write anyone, but I know it's tough. I have a good ghostwriter. I used to write articles a ton. I don't hardly write them now, but it was basically talking about the value of inches, and I'm not like really far leaning one way or the other. I'm not a big trophy hunter. I'm all about whatever you're about, right? If you're a trophy hunter, then rub some funk on it. When I say that, meaning you're looking for the oldest animal out there. And if you're a guy that's an opportunity dude, like I don't care. Like, do what makes you happy. But, is a 52-inch rifle goat going to be remembered better for you or look better on the wall than a 48-inch bow kill? That's a good question, right? I mean, it's different for everyone, and you can't, because your views are one way, you can't think that everybody's going to look at the same way you are. So for me, I would choose a 48-inch, bow kill over a 52 rifle. As I say that, I know multiple people that would smack the shit out of me for saying that, because they're like, "Are you out of your mind?" And neither one of them is wrong. Right. It's the hunt's for you, not for someone else. So you got to do what's most important for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, like I said before on here, I think it was a podcast with you. I mean, I don't have the body count that you and Waste Dog have yet. And I'm still crossing off a lot of firsts here, but, I don't know. I'll be happy to shoot, any decent billy, I think,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As it should be. Go ahead.
Now, I wanted to go back to arrows quick, Snyder. This crossed my mind. I wanted to ask you. I was cruising through Instagram the other day, and there's this fucking guy on there. And man, is he giving a lot of bad advice. And I didn't know he existed. I never really watched any of his videos. That Ranch Fairy guy.
Oh yeah.
And I just can't believe like the stuff that the amount of what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that the amount of stuff that people are putting out there and people are actually listening to that is just total bullshit. So it's crazy. So
I talked to him the other day because I there's no kind of about it. I was talking shit on something I did with the elk shaped guy about 800 grain arrows. And I had mentioned the Ranch Fairy before too. If you're going to nickname yourself, why would you put Fairy in it? And he seems like a nice enough guy. I mean, and I've had friends of mine say he's a good dude. I don't have any issues with that, but they're like, hey, your arrow setup would actually be closer, to what basically I had the Ranch Fairy wrong with my opinions of them. And I'm like, well, man, I'm just going off of what people have sent me. And, like I don't have time to watch all his stuff. I probably should or need to, but, I go off of what works for me and other people that are really successful. And then there's kind of, there's no absolutes in archery, but I mean, there's certainly some rules of the road you should follow. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I've noticed with extreme point weight, it's harder to get your arrows to tune. The arrows I have now, I'm tuning. I have 225 to 250 up front. I'm fine tuning them. They tune way easier than 3 to 325 up front. Simple things like that. And as far as arrow weight, I like a heavier arrow, but as I say that, when people call me with a 26-inch draw on a compound and they're like, well, my arrow's 450. I'm like, yeah, you're good. Just put a fixed blade on it. You'll be fine. Just make sure your body has super sharp arrow flight's good. And I've had guys call me that have gotten directions from that dude shooting a 600 plus grain arrow at a 26-inch draw. And I'm like, well, you're going to be lobbing logs, like you got to take into consideration if you're shooting shit under a feeder, it's a pretty static environment in comparison to hanging off a cliff. And, you may blow the deer out. He walks out 15 yards and you got to make a quick shot, but now your yardage is off. And while a fast bow isn't everything, you want some semblance of speed. Anyway, I'm rambling. What were you hearing from him? What was going on that you were just like, what the hell?
Well, just like, just that extreme FOC. And, he was shooting 800 grain arrows. And he was basically saying like, this is the way you got to set your stick bows up. And to me, I mean, I've shot bull moose with 500 grain arrows and passed through. So I don't know what, I don't like people giving stupid advice.
Yeah. Well, this is one thing. I don't think he's shot a bull moose. Actually, I'm quite certain he hasn't. That's the thing, right? Like when you give advice, and you have a lot of experience, whatever that may be at, whether it's throwing darts or making peanut butter cookies, you're going off of your collective of experiences, like the data you've come up with. So I've killed a lot of shit with a 5 to 600 grain, and I've never been wanting for a heavier arrow ever. And that's a few hundred animals. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody comes across and says, why aren't you shooting? Like, where'd you get that? Like, where'd that come from? Just because it's worked really well for me and I've passed through and, broken leg bones and whatever. And it's just not, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't mind shooting any great grain arrow if I'm sitting by a feeder, because it's a pretty static environment. When you put variables in that environment, as spot and stalk, I mean, how often have you stalked up on a bear and they're just moving, feed, move, feed, move, feed? Well, if you go to draw when they're feeding and then all of a sudden they move out 10, 12, 8, 14 yards, a faster bow is going to be, it's got to be a happy medium for everything is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Happy medium. That's what I was trying to get at too there. So
it's really hard to ignore too, that all of kind of the trailblazers inside the archery space, all the guys that are just killing a pile of shit and spending their time, developing these tech videos and arrow building videos and or podcast content, like guys like you, Aaron, all of their data lines up. And then there's a couple outliers here and there. To me, it's just like, it couldn't be more obvious, and you start getting into this stuff once you start diving down kind of the archery geek rabbit hole, like, all of us are, in that percentage of spending way too much time on arrow builds and shit like that. You kind of almost get to the point where the bow dictates the tune anyways. And okay, I'm at a good weight. Perfect. Move on,
Mm-hmm. Well, Cody Greenwood, I think the Lethal podcast guy, brought up to Cody kind of bashing me that, Aaron shoots heavy FOC, and so I don't know, something. Cody was like, well, man, that's just where his arrow tuned and where he got the right point on. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand that. If it's my arrow right now has 225 up front, that gets me the 36-7 yard point on that I wanted with around 170 to 180 feet per second, with good arrow flow and good grouping. That could have been that it was 310 grains up front. It just, that is where it tuned. And that's what I worry about, is the tune and, a decent arrow weight, a decent speed, and the point on I want. I don't have some crazy number in my head that 8% FOC. I build the arrow and the FOC ends up to whatever it ends up. And honestly, I don't ever check that shit anyway, so I don't even know what it is. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's where it ends up, and I walk away because that's what I've been successful with. And you really don't want to screw around with success. Success is there for a reason. And if it's long-term and consistent success, then it's definitely not luck. And so I based it off of what's worked for me. And I don't think anybody should do anything different. I mean, look at Randy Cooling. He's shooting a 470 grain arrow at grizzlies and brown bear and moose and everything else. And he's been successful. So who am I to tell him he's wrong?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, arrow flight kind of leads the way here too. If you don't have good arrow flight, you're kind of screwed anyways, right? I don't know many dudes that can tune a 750 grain arrow with 300 grains in the front of it or 400 grains in the front of it and have it tune well out of the gate, not without a whole bunch of dicking around.
Yeah. And again, you're right. It's doable. But at what end and at what cost? Like, I can tune just about anything eventually. Now my brace height, I may have to screw with that. And I may, there's a lot of different things that come into play. And when I say that, the skinnier shafts with extreme point weight take me a long time to get tuned to perfection, where the moderate weight, these arrows I have now are 580 with 225 up front. I had them dialed in on that bow in, 5-10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a rocket science. It's just, it's pretty simple. If you look, like you said, and I got into quite a bit of an argument with a guy online that was talking crap about me canting over and Jake, and he kept talking about the 5 best barebow shooters in the world. And I was like, okay, well, you're leaving out, who are the 5 best hunters in the world right now, who are the most successful? And he listed a group off, and I said, and we all lean over, every one of us. Mm-hmm. We can't our bow. Well, yep. His point was we would be more accurate if we stood upright. And I said, well, maybe on flat ground at a target. But what about, hunting situations? There's a reason we're all doing that, and you have more cover, more concealment. If you're in a ground blind or a tree stand or cliffs, the bottom limb tip's not going to hit. That doesn't mean people can't be successful shooting a vertical bow. But why the hell would a guy that's never killed anything, and this dude hasn't, get on there and start talking about how we're all stupid for not shooting a vertical bow when he's never killed anything or even been on the side of a mountain? It's a pretty bold statements, in there, and you got to do what works for you.
Yeah. Yep. It doesn't really matter the topic. It exists, right? We get into it. you get into it with gear and arrows and bows and fuck. I've dove down the rifle, the picking what bullet rabbit hole in the last week, dealing with a couple rifles I just built. And it's like, man, if you're depending on forums in the internet instead of dudes actual in the field experience, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to put it together. You gotta depend on guys that have experience in the field. That's it. That comes paramount, I think.
Well, it's funny with guns because I'm not a big gun guy. I mean, I understand.
No, me either.
Ballistic coefficients, whatever. But when we were building my rifle, the guy was like, "What do you want?" And I said, "I don't know, man. Like a 300 Winchester short mag, or whatever." I'm like, "I don't get 30-06." And he goes, "Well, what about a 6.5 PRC?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sounds good." And he's like, "Do you care?" I'm like, "No." And then he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Dude, I shoot shit with a stick bow. If I can't get within 200 yards to 300 yards and with any bullet, I don't care what it is. I mean, when I say within reason, and kill it, what am I doing?" Like, I mean, it's not, and we've been very successful with that PRC. I highly recommend it with some big elk all the way down. And actually Outdad are really big up, big chested. Now, does that mean that somebody couldn't eat me alive on a forum talking about, I would get crushed in a rifle conversation. But the one thing I do have is about 70 animals on the ground with that rifle. And I haven't lost one. So it's like, well, it's working. Okay, I'm sorry that my shit drops an extra inch and I could do this and rub some funk on it and have this other bullet. But I just go and hunt and I'll just get closer. And so I way oversimplify. You know who's really bad about that? Clay Lancaster.
Oh yeah.
He's a 30-06 get her done 3x9 guy. Like if he's like, if I can't kill it with this, what the fuck am I doing on the mountain? And he'll say exactly that. So
it falls back to, with the compound, when you said that, a guy, you're relying on your shooting ability, and some of these guys with these long range guns, they really rely on the gun to carry them when, instead of just getting closer.
Me and Trevor Thompson from Black Rifle were laughing real hard last night. We were talking about this whole bullet thing I've been going through, and he's like, "Oh, that drops 40 inches at 400 yards or whatever it was. Whatever, I don't remember the numbers." And I was like, "Yeah, my stick bow drops 42 at 50. Like, I'm okay. I can hold over that far. I'm aiming at the sky with my recurve."
Yeah, no, that's no kidding. And I mean, the reality, and I think the long range shooting stuff is cool. Like I admire guys that are capable of doing that. It's not my thing at all. But the thing is, and this is coming from the guy that was the bad dude. When I got all that flack when I had the compound and I was talking crap about ethical shooting distances, and guys said, "Well, you can't kill anything. You suck as a hunter. Pick up a stick bow." I did learn really quickly. Just get closer. Simplifies everything, right? Just get closer. Like, learn to shoot your bow, learn to hunt, learn to stalk, learn animal behavior, just get closer. So rather than worrying if my mechanical's broadhead's going to open up at 76 yards on whatever animal, I'll just scoot closer. And so it's a different mentality where guys worry about, which I totally respect people being anal about their setups. But if we're on a hunt and we're at 480 and I'm unsure I can hit it, I want to have a plan, right? I want to have practiced or whatever. But if I'm a decent enough hunter in a lot of conditions, I will just get to 280. A lot of people don't look at it that way. They, that's like the crazy 800 grain shooting through the leg thing. Well, I'm not aiming at the fucking leg, right? So yes, I could hit it, but simple mathematics says the chances of me hitting the liver and stomach are much, much greater than me hitting the leg bone. Leg bone's small. And so why am I basing my entire arrow build on shooting the leg bone? That's stupid. It's to me anyway. So
sounds like you're following common sense, Aaron, and I'm not sure the internet is cool with that.
I guess not. And again, anybody that's extreme to one side or the other, I get a little twitchy because it's like you've passed the point of common sense and now you're just trying to go along with your specific views and narrative and not common sense. And so the argument I had with the 650 to 800 grain arrow was.
Oops.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we lost you there for a sec.
I lost it for a sec there. The argument I had with the 650 to 800 grain arrow for the bone breaking penetration was, what if I'm shooting a wide, right? That's not, a burrow wide broadhead, because I'm worried about the liver or stomach shot. Because there's higher probability to do that than to hit the leg bone. So, yeah. I mean, for me, I cater to common sense, and whitetails, the leg bone is the last of my worry. But that thing darting forward, ducking the string, liver, lung, liver, stomach is a higher probability.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's an interesting point to move from, with common sense here. I kind of part of the timing why I was like, it's, we're at the end of July here and we're all starting to leave on hunts pretty quick. And a lot of my buddies left for sheep opener yesterday, started heading up north here in BC. I mean, we should probably talk about gear a bit and talk about kind of go through some of our packing lists and stuff like that. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Aaron, was the down versus synthetic and kind of when to make that jump to synthetic instead of trying to save weight with down, right? I kind of realized I had a big hiccup in my system this year for the goat hunt here, and I had no on my packing list. I didn't have a synthetic bag or a synthetic puffy, and I mean BC can be wet.
Is he there?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know what about that. It keeps clicking off and on my headphones, but I heard you say you didn't have a synthetic bag or puffy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was looking at my packing list and I was like, oh, if I get wet, I am screwed here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I added in a Lost Park parka instead of a down puffy, but I mean, what's that kind of, when do you make the jump, like from down to synthetic?
I don't use down jackets hardly ever. And when I say hardly ever, like maybe in Colorado on a really long hike in, and I want to save a little weight, but and again, I didn't buy the one I have. It was given to me. Mm-hmm. I have had bad luck with down. And I'm not, when people listen to this, they're going to say something to the effect of, I've been using down for years and it's been fine. And I am proud of you for that. That is awesome. My experience has been different. So I'm going to go off of my experience. And so a sleeping bag's a little bit different because you're in a shelter, and obviously it takes a lot of condensation for the bag to go down or fall in a river. But with a jacket, the big thing people need to understand, especially the good synthetics, is they are somewhere in the 97 to 98% efficiency rating when wet, meaning they are 97 to 98% as efficient as they were when they were dry, when they are wet. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very important, especially in that shithole you guys live in. It rains all the fucking time up there. So when you're dealing with that, to me, it's like, why risk it? I save 3 ounces maybe, and I save 3 square inches in packable space. if my pack's big enough, that's not a worry. And if my fitness level is good enough, then what's 2 to 3 ounces in comparison to the one thing that can push you off the mountain? 3 ounces can't push you off the mountain.
Yeah, that's
everything being
fart.
soaking wet. Yeah, you can't stay on the mountain when you're freezing to death. So I try to bracket it that way or look at it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I looked at it this year, I was like, "Oh, I'm screwed." Whoops.
But I think he's right. Like for your bag, I mean, I don't know how much I would worry about it. Right? We'd have to be in some pretty heavy rain for a long time to get fucked over on your bag.
Yeah, and I use it down. And this coming from a guy, we only sell synthetic at the company that I own. Mm-hmm. But I'm also realistic to the fact I don't sprinkle fairy dust up people's shirts and say I only use a Kafaru slick bag. Now, if the world is ending, yes, I'm bringing a synthetic bag. That way, it's kind of like a multi-fuel stove. I don't take multi-fuel stoves on a lot of hunts, but I tell you what, when the world ends, I'm not using a fucking canister stove, because what's going to happen when I can't find canisters? I can find diesel or kerosene or white gas or unleaded, and I can burn that fuel. Thing when I go on on the mountain goat hunt, I will 100% have a synthetic bag, and I have the option. I have multiple bags. But when you're looking at, saving weight and you're in a shelter and everything else, yeah, a synthetic bag is not always needed. But a jacket I worry more about.
Yeah. When, at what point do you start bringing the Lost Park, pants?
Next to never. Really cold late season. So for me, November on is when I bring those, and when I know I'm going to be behind the glass a lot, and I need those on to stay warm. So it would be a later season goat, sheep, mule deer hunt, a late season rifle hunt where I know I'm going to be behind the glass freezing, and I bring those.
Yeah, I run super cold, so I'm always like just way my system's always way overbuilt for when that temperature starts dipping. And I mean those Lost Park pants have been in my cart for I don't know, the better part of 3 years or whatever, and I'm just trying to figure out when I would use them, and yeah, maybe late in the season, or if I do a winter goat hunt or something at some point, I'll bring them.
Yeah, and that's me. Like, I don't bring thermal underwear very often on backpack hunts until later in the year. I'll start to do it. Same thing with the puffy pants. Now, the pants they're one of those things when you need them, you fucking need them.
Yeah.
But I just don't need them very often. But when I do, it's important.
One eternity later.
I don't remember what we were talking about before. I
asked him. I said, I said to Snyder, "Are you going for Alberta mule deer?" Is what I said.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha. So for all the listeners, we just spent 20 minutes bashing everyone in the industry, and then we have to edit that out. So, but I think so. What I did, because with Alberta being how it was, and the vaccine and everything, I kind of rescheduled to do some hunting and guiding to where I didn't have to go to Alberta. But one thing, and we should kind of cover. We talk about gear, especially in the portion we're going to have to delete out, is every area has its own issues, and they're not all, they're exclusive of each area. Meaning, if I went and hunted in BC, I'm not really worried about altitude. It's low to the ground. What I am worried about is rain, and you guys have a lot of deadfall, and your terrain, underbrush, and just the daily weather is much different packing list than what you would face in Colorado. Mm-hmm, Colorado doesn't rain as much, but you have no altitude. The wildernesses aren't as large, or the areas, but they're steeper. And so you have to take that into account, whether you're worried about down or synthetic, or what stove to bring, or what boots or clothing, or in general. Every packing list is a little bit different for the area you're going. And I try to convey that to people, because if you're taking advice from like an ultralight weight weenie that hunts in Colorado, but you're going to be hunting in BC or North Idaho, that guy's advice may not be the best advice in the world. And the other thing too is, when people respond to this podcast, there's going to be guys that say, I can easily do 7 days with a 3,000 cubic inch pack.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't need to listen to the podcast, because you would be someone that actually, in air quotations, knows what they're doing. Well, we're giving advice for people getting started to keep them comfortable and safe.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And a 3,000 cubic inch pack for a 7-day hunt at 28 pounds is not, other than the hike in, comfortable or overly safe, because you're leaving out things because of that person's specific skill set. He is good at woodsmanship and field craft. He knows the gear he needs, not that a beginner needs. And so, again, I see the guys give advice sometimes, and I'm like, hey, that is an extreme on one side of the fence. That'd be like guys saying a guy needs 70 pounds for 7 days. In the middle is where you want to end up. And that's important to think about when you're packing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding. Something that just prompted a question in my mind is, you said boots, and following your Q&As, Aaron, I don't think you could say Zamberlan 2092 or Baltoro, which is a terrible name, any more than you have in the last couple months. I get guys asking me, how come you're not running handwigs anymore? Like all the time.
Two things. So one, I designed a boot for them, and they didn't come through with the design, and it was kind of having some issues. And they did fix it. So that was one of the things too. The toe box, because I run aftermarket orthotics.
Yep.
And the toe box seems to be getting smaller and smaller. And I had a lot of guys message me can you test out some other boots? And I'd already been wearing the 2092 for 3 or 4 years, so I knew that one was solid. So I called Zamberlan and just said, hey, can you send me out like an array of boots to test with, because they have wider toe boxes. Mm-hmm. So I was able to, I'm able to get my custom orthotic in that without blowing out, or restructuring the leather with tools that I have. So, in the interim, it's not like all of a sudden the Hanvogs are bad. Mm-hmm. It's just that Zamberlan was a better fit. Well, I will say that 2092, in my opinion, is the best mountain hunting boot on the market for me. But the other ones, like the Storm and the Baltoro, that's just a boot that I could have my custom orthotic in that's more durable than a Makra. The Makra is still an amazing boot. It just, after trying them, that's just a more durable boot that offers kind of the same package, but doesn't have the, isn't going to leak like the Makra might, because the Makra's got a lot of synthetic on it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you the question that everybody's going to ask me after this podcast is, out of those 3 boots, the 2092, the Storm, the Baltoro, what's a boot that a dude could go spend his, $500 or $600 or whatever on and have as his main only boot?
So if you like a stiffer boot, so if I was with you guys, it'd be the 2092, meaning I lived up by you guys, and it's not the most optimal for like bear hunting when you're down low off the logging roads. It's way over for that. But if the one boot, that would be it. Now, if you were hunting more lowland and higher, that Storm would be the one I would suggest. A little more flexible, a little lighter, super durable. It's not quite walking like in ski boots, where that 2092 is pretty beefy.
Yeah.
So, and there's other boots. I didn't try out every boot they had. I tried out a bunch of Las Sportivas, a bunch of Zamberlans, some Salewas, and that's just where I ended up. Their guide boot is another one that's probably the best all around boot. For me, it's like an extreme of one end or the other.
Yeah.
I don't need a medium boot. When I'm on a mountain hunt, I want a 2092. If I'm hunting antelope, I'm going to use the Storm or Baltoro. But I would say for most people, that Storm would be the best all around boot until you get into extreme mountain hunting.
Man, I went through like a boot evolution a couple years ago, and I landed on one of them Solewa boots, and it's like, I felt like I was wearing a Nike. Like I could just rip in the mountains with that thing. And then I had it fail on me in one of our BC downpours. I mean, I think there's a video of my Instagram of me wringing out socks and like dumping out water boots that are just full of water. It was a nightmare.
Was it a mountain trainer?
I think it was.
Yeah. So, well, I obviously have used Solewa enough to know that probably was the boot that you were referring to. People have to understand that you pay the piper no matter what. You're paying the toll man. So when somebody's like, I have a sub 3 pound backpack, well, you're giving up durability at the very least, probably comfort. Boots are the same way. If you go with a flexible, lightweight boot, it's going to leak. It's going to get shredded, and you can get by with it. But again, like you go the other way, the 2092. You're paying the piper on the other end. It's too durable. It's more durable than you probably need. It's probably stiffer than you need. So that's the decision you got to make. Are you going to replace your boots every 6 months, or are you going to have a set that lasts for 3 years?
Yeah.
Hey, so one of the boots I want to ask you about is I was talking to AJ on Instagram the other day, and he was looking at the Loa Tibets. And I'm like, I think there's a reason, Snyder doesn't talk about Loa. And because I've wore Loas a lot of years. And I mean, they don't call them leaky Loas for nothing. Yeah. So
that's it right there. The leaking. The Loa Tibet or Loa Tibet is a lot like the Hanwag Alaskan or the Zamberlan Guide. It's a decently high, like I think it's a 9-inch high mountain hunting boot. Mm-hmm. My biggest issue with Loa wasn't comfort and it wasn't fit. They leaked. And so do all Lawas leak? If you're listening to this, you're like, I've had Lawas for 3 years. I'm proud of you. That's awesome. They leaked for me. So I didn't, and everybody's, I mean, let's face it. If I say a boot leaks and I live in Colorado, they probably leak, but a good boot in Colorado may not be a good boot in your guys' neck of the woods. Like it doesn't rain that much here. And so,
like
Yeah, for me, I mean, for me, a boot needs to be so well-rounded, right? Like I have my feet are screwed. Like I have a hitch in my giddy up if I get the wrong boot on. And like I do everything from hunting in Alberta down south on mule deer to up in the mountains here in BC. So I need it. And like, I get married to a boot just cause my feet are so screwed. Right. I run a custom orthotic too. And, I kind of settled on that Hanwag, Alaskan GTX, but I mean, I'm due for a boot. I settled on that boot, I think 3.5 years ago, and it's pretty well done. So I'm kind of asking some selfish questions here, right?
When that's why I brought up the Loa too, because I get them questions all the time too. And I'm like, there's a reason Snyder's not talking about them.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that again, I mean, that's like, rather than that, I don't want to misspeak on info I don't have. At one time when I ran Lawas, I didn't have great luck with them. I don't bash them, right? But I mean, you're asking, so I'm obviously bashing them now. When I say that, meaning they may have fixed whatever issues they had. Maybe I just had a bad run of the Tibets, but I have lots of guys that love Kinetrex. I have had, not personally, because I only tried one set to know I didn't like them. I had a lot of different guiding, and Clay was there for a lot of this where I'm duct taping soles on. And I mean, I'm breaking out my suture kit to sew shit back together. So I'm based it off of that. And that's not to say that. So, I mean, Jake likes Kinetrex.
Yeah, he loves them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's each personal preference and personal opinion and obviously the collective of experiences. Did I have a bad set? Maybe that was it. It was 3 sets. Maybe that was it. So what I do know is the Makra, for example, is one of the most comfortable boots I've worn, not super durable.
Yeah.
So you're going to blow through those things. The 2092 is extremely comfortable. It has a very low break-in time for a mountaineering boot, and I have never had it leak, and that thing will last. It is bomb-proof. But you got a little bigger boot, a little bit stiffer boot. Footwear is so subjective to, I have guys telling me they run Solomon Quest 4D. That to me is equivalent to toilet paper. I hate that. Comfortable boot. But when guys are like, I've been wearing these and I'm going to take them on my sheep hunt. And then well, Navy SEALs wear them. Yeah, I know they get them free, right? And they're not backpacking in for 14 days either.
We're not Navy SEAls, man.
Yes. So
I just finished eating Chipotle and now I gotta chase a bunch of kids around, man. I'm not doing freaking pull-ups all day.
Yeah.
I know I like the low Tibets. I wore them last year and the grass was wet. We were chasing elk. I might as well have went and fucking stood in a river. That's how that's how fucking wet my feet were, and I was so fucking mad. So Snyder's not saying this. I'm not speaking for Snyder, but fucking Loas are shit. Don't fucking buy Loas.
Tanner has to take a drink. That's where we cross off another sponsor we'll never get. This podcast is brought to you by Rage, turning gut shots into great shots.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Well, I mean, mechanicals were invented by our hunting guide for people who can't tune, and people are like, "You're a hypocrite. You shoot mechanicals," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I could tune a bow, and I have two sets. When I shot a compound, I had fixed blades and mechanicals." Well, immediately people hear what they want to, and so. I did it the polite way. Wasey just said it for me. I would not take a free set of Lawas and use them. I wouldn't take a free set. That's how bad of luck I had with them. And the exact same thing Wasey just said. I'm walking in wet grass in Colorado from dew.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally went through a mile of that. And I got to the end of my feet were soaked. And guys were like, "Oh, it's coming down your pant leg." I had fucking gaiters on. It wasn't coming down my pant leg. It was coming down basically the bottom 2 inches where the stitch line where the laces go. It was coming right through there.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I got home and they were dried out, I put them in the sink. I might as well have had a faucet turn off. And again, people are going to listen to this and say, "I've had Lawas and I've had great luck." I'm not doubting that, and I'm not calling you a liar.
They live in Arizona.
I had bad luck, and that's all I'm saying. So I just don't talk about it.
Yeah. That's wild that you picked off what Salewa boot I was running there. But I mean, it sounds like Frank's had good luck with Salewas, right?
Well, again, I think your luck is that Salewa mountain trainer. I suggest that boot to guys for antelope hunting. They grip to rock unbelievably. So let's Tiburon Island. Aoudad in Texas, that would be a great. Now you'll destroy it fairly quickly, but grips to rock like crazy, super flexible, somewhat, enough. It gives you enough support that you're not like wearing tennis shoes. But if somebody said I'm going on a sheep hunt, I'd be like, "Well, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah, don't wear that boot." That's. So I don't think they did you wrong, and Frank knows that. Frank wears beefy mountaineering boots on hunts. And he trains in those. They're called a trainer for a reason. Yeah. They're not called a mountain hunter. I mean, they are for training.
Yeah, those boots rip. I'm like Usain Bolt in them bastards. They're cool. Hey, a thing I have an issue with boots too is, I mean, I'm a sweaty guy. I'm constantly battling moisture, and like if I have an issue on a hunt, it's generally moisture.
It's Chipotle.
Yeah, no shit, right? I'm just fucking sweating out a year's worth of burritos every fall. But no, man, like I'm constantly battling moisture, and like when stuff goes awry for me, we get 5-6 days back there and you're dealing with moisture for that long. That's when stuff starts to come apart at the seams, quite literally, right? With boots, like where is the balance between a boot that's waterproof and a boot that lets your foot breathe a little bit so you're not swimming in your own sweat?
Honestly, run a leather lined boot with no Gore-Tex in it, and then just waterproof it. That's going to breathe, really better than anything. That's one reason why I like synthetic boots, is they breathe better even with a Gore-Tex lining. The problem is pokey things go right through the synthetic and then poke the Gore-Tex layer, and then you have Swiss cheese. So I mean. And Gore-Tex is only good for about a year anyway, in footwear from what I've seen. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes it'll be less than a year. But, to me, when you look at like that Storm or the Makra or the some of the more that Alps, that mountain trainer you had, I think it's called an Alps mountain trainer or something like that from Zalewa. Mm-hmm. If you sprayed Nick Wax on those a bunch and you really paid attention and you didn't walk in cactus, they'll last a little bit longer. But if you take a straight up leather boot or like that 2092, treat it I don't treat mine very often. The leather is going to hold it out, especially if you treat it, and you don't have to worry about perforating the membrane. Mm-hmm. Anytime you have synthetic anywhere on a boot, especially if you're in cactus areas or whatever, you're going to put holes in that. And again, synthetic leaks easier than leather. So if it's all leather, now you have more heat, but you have a Gore-Tex lining and a leather. So if you treat your boots well and don't wear a Gore-Tex lining, your foot won't sweat. I bet your boots smell like Bigfoot's dick, don't they? If your feet sweat that bad, are they pretty smelly?
I'm pretty anal retentive with making sure my feet stay dry, but I'm like, hey, pack multiple socks on a hunt kind of cat, So they're not too stinky. I mean, my wife might say otherwise, but
Frank's got stinky feet. He'll pull his boots off when we're glassing, and it's like, oh, Frank, put him downwind, man. Jesus.
That's like Wasey in general. Wasey's a smelly guy. You wait to share camp with him.
Yeah.
Farting
and snoring and all kinds of shit and smell and stuff's coming out of him, man.
Well, the farting I can get around. The snoring, like, I don't snore, but I roll around. I don't sleep much. So like when guys are like, are we bringing 1 tent or 2? I'm like, oh, we're bringing 2. Yeah. You do not want to be in the same tent as me because I roll around all night. I'll throw chews in at midnight and, spit out the freaking vestibule, and I'm not a good campmate. So there's like a 15-meter rule. Like you do not want to be within 15 meters of it. Sounds like Wasey either, because some people snore all night. Some people Aqua Mirror or Aqua Tabs are making them fart all night. Some guys, like for me, it's funny. And people have laughed at this, but the truth be told, like, how often do you really want to get out of your fart sack at 2 a.m. to pee? I don't. No. I pack in a Gatorade bottle for a pee bottle. So then I just dump it out the next morning, and then I got my pee bottle again. And guys are like, and I peed in Ziploc bags because it was so cold I didn't want to get out of my tent. And then I just put it outside the vestibule and dump it in the morning. Guys, that's so disgusting. I'm like, well, spend the majority of your life in a tent. I don't like to get out of the warm sleeping bag. And so I find ways to not have to get out of it. It's not like I want to lose all the heat, crawl out in my socks or my bare feet, pee, enjoy the stars for 30 seconds. And I've seen them enough. I'll just pee in my tent and look at the stars on a different night.
Shit, dude, I peed in a Starbucks cup like 2 days ago because I was stuck in traffic. I get it.
There you go. That's funny. So speaking of Starbucks, so I don't go to Starbucks very often, but sometimes, once every few weeks I will. So I order an almond milk latte, which is literally coffee with almond milk.
$1,700.
Yeah, well, we call it $5 because it's $5 no matter. I mean, a cup of water is $5 at Starbucks. So Randy Cooling's on the horn with me, and I order that. What kind of foo-foo? What? And I'm like, dude, it's coffee with almond milk. It's like I can't order Starbucks on the phone with anyone, no matter what I order, unless I just say coffee black, please, because I get made fun of so much.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, it's very strong coffee with almond milk, guys. I didn't order like a caramel macchiato drizzle.
I'm not marrying a man. It's coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit. So hey, is that 2092? That's a boot that'll breathe for me?
No, hell no.
Oh.
No.
What boot should I go to? Tell me.
Man, if you were wearing the Alaskan GTX, the Yukon leather line.
Yeah. All right. It works for me.
It's the Alaskan without Gore-Tex.
Mm-hmm.
I owned a pair of fucking synthetic boots before. They just got they had the synthetic side, kind of like the handwags do, and they just got fucking destroyed. Like they were comfortable boot, man, super light, but they just didn't last right. So if you're going to buy them synthetic kind of style boots on the side, you plan on replacing them every year, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the next one that you've answered 17 million times. Every time you do a story, somebody asks you this, and it's gotten to the point now where anybody that we're helping with getting into hunting and getting ready to hunt asks us, it's like, should I spend my money on upgrading my binos, or should I get a $600 spotter?
Yeah.
Well, you guys know the answer to that.
No shit.
From me, and I've hurt people's feelings with this, but it's like, look, if you have Vortex Vipers and you're looking at getting a $1,200 spotter, sell the Vipers, save the $1,200, go buy high-end optics. And I cannot preach that enough. And guys say, no, I looked at, in fact, Copper Plated Sixes did some great memes the other day. Well, I went to Cabela's and I don't see the difference between these Vortex or these Mavens and these, and it's like, you're inside. That's like saying, oh, these three women are all good looking in glamour shots. That doesn't, you can't tell what a woman looks like at a glamour shot. It's totally fucking bullshit. So you can't look at optics in Cabela's and tell. And I get it if you don't have the money. I totally get that. Like I used, subpar optics forever. You get what you can afford, but it is better to have a high-end set of tins on a tripod than a crappy set of tins and a crappy spotter. You can see more for longer with just binoculars on a tripod. And the new 12 power NLs have a wider field of view than my 56s, my 15 by 56s. They're easy to handhold. But again, Zeiss SF's one of the best. I would say I put that binocular above an EL Swarovski. The NL now beats the SF, but you look at Leica Noctivid, Swarovski, SLC, EL, or NLs, Zeiss SFs, that will be the smartest purchase you've ever made. And you do not want to get a crappy spotter because you just keep upgrading little by little, wasting money. It's better to just save and get the best.
I had a fucking spot. I went to Southern Alberta last year with that fucking Vortex Viper, 80 mil, I think it was. And this is how fucking
huge heavy spotter.
This is how fucking mad I was, Snyder. I had a Dodge 1-ton down there. I put that thing under my fucking wheel and drove over it. That's how fucking mad I was. And when I say that, I'm not fucking kidding. I picked up the pieces of that son of a bitch and threw them in the box of my truck. I was fucking choked. So if you're thinking about buying Vortex, don't fucking buy that shit either. Since we're doing this today.
Again, Tanner, you have to take another drink. Another sponsor we'll never get.
Well, the thing, here's what I try to tell, what I try to get my point across. And I did this. So it's like, I'm guilty of it. I remember the first set I got of binoculars were like a cheap set of Bushnells. They were $90, right? This is well over 2 decades ago. And then I went up to like a Pentax, and then I went to a Brunton Eterna, and then I went to, I think, a Nikon Monarch 7 or I don't know, whatever it was, and all what I could afford. And later on down the line, I probably owned, and then I got Vortex Vipers, and then I had Vortex Razors, and in all of that, when I sold those, I took a hit of 15% at a minimum.
Oh, yeah.
If you do the math, I would have been smarter to run a subpar set of binoculars and save for, not buy all those other subpar binoculars and save and got a whatever is applicable at that time frame, a Swarovski SLC or whatever. And there are good binoculars. The Leupold BX5s are great for the money. The Maven B2 is great for the money. And if that's all you can afford, then I get those. And then your goal is to keep saving to get the top 3. So that, it saves you that much money. The thing is it's no different than packs or boots. If you buy, I don't want to start listing all these names and piss people off, but if you buy 7 sets of subpar boots and then you finally spend $400 on a set of boots, would you have been smarter to save up and then just buy one $400 set of boots rather than 6 or 7 $180 sets of boots? That same with packs or anything else. And so to me, if somebody said, all right, tomorrow you have to have an optic, pick one. You can't have a spotter. You just have to have binoculars, and you have to go on 10 different hunts. Well, it's going to be a Zeiss SF or an EL or an SLC or a Noctivid. I mean, it's going to be one of those, and they last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say forever, I shit you not, my buddy's running the same freaking Swaros, and my other buddy runs the same Zeiss, and they are 20 years old, and they are unbelievable optics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The question that guys always ask too is they're like, what's it going to do for me by going to a, you know, Swaro or a Zeiss or Leica or one of, you know, the big three from the, you know, Cabela's counter $500 binocular?
So the easiest, there's like three major things. One's easy, light gathering. You'll be able to see 15 minutes later into darkness or last light, and you'll see better. And same thing, you know, first light, you'll be able to see better. Next is chromatic aberration or edge to edge clarity. The human eye attracts to the clearest spot in the glass. And when you hear it's clear throughout, that means you can look from the far left edge to the far right edge and see no difference. The reason why people get migraines and headaches is if the very center of that optic is only clear, that when you're looking through the objective. When your eyeball shoots to the right out of the unclear, you know, from clear to unclear, and your eye's going to snap back over and over and over back to the clearest portion. So when you go to the edge and you're not pivoting the optic, you're just looking to the edge of the glass, your eye is naturally going to snap back to the best portion. That is what causes them. Now, this is coming from an optometrist. I'm not one. I just pretend to be one on a podcast, but that's what the optometrists have explained to me. And so that's why you get those headaches, one of the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that right there, being able to glass. And again, if you're not glassing for hours at a time, you're not going to know, you know, edge detail and things like that. But if you're glassing for hours and hours at a time, especially people that are more prone to it, you will have a headache so bad you want to cut your head off from your optics. And it's like a bad pack out. You don't know how many guys call our customer service that are like, I get it, I finally killed something, and they'll drop an insane amount of money to be comfortable because they, at that time, have learned, okay, my God, one of our packs are a comfortable pack, and he had an uncomfortable pack, and he tried his buddies on, and the light popped on. Well, if you've only hunted thick timber for elk or whatever, you're not using your optics that much. You don't need, but you go on your first sheep hunt and you're ready to cut your head off on day 2 because you can't glass. You're probably going to pony up and buy some good optics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That California Tradbo guy messaged me, or he had a thing on his story the other day, and he was about Maven. You know, what Maven should I get? And I said to him, like, that's the new Vortex. And I'm not trying to bash Maven. It's just like, there's these middle of the road binos, and it's a big market. I get it. And I get that's what guys can afford, right? That $500 to whatever, $600-$700 range of binos. And that's what guys want to get. But to me, it's almost like what I was trying to say to him with that. It's almost like you're just wasting your time. You should just save your money and try and get into the big three, and you'll be set for life with them pair of binos, right? Because I've done the $500-$600 bino thing many fucking times, and if I'd have just saved my money, I could have bought a fucking real pair, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I the only thing that I would differ from what you just said, and I pretty much mimic everything. If you're initially getting binoculars until you can afford the top 3, then I would say 100% Maven B2s or Loophole BX5s. If you can get those and then hold out until you can get the top 3, those are the best options. But if you are upgrading from something 2% below that to, save your money. Like, that's the thing that people don't get is if you're, man, and we're going to piss some fucking people off with this, but if you've got a Vortex Viper and then you go to a Vortex Razor and then you go to a Maven BX B2 or a Loophole BX5, all those are made in the same factory by the same Asian kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're gaining small increments to where you want to gain this really large of an increment. So if the first set you buy that you can afford is a B2 or a BX5, great on you, good on you, now save for the top 3. But if you're incrementally gaining, that's where you piss away fucking money like it's your job. Like you are literally throwing money out the window of the truck.
Yeah. What happened to me is I had I mean, I've said this a million times. I started hunting as an adult, and I didn't realize it, but I had really insane mentorship right from the jump with my buddy Ronnie. He's, killed like 30 sheep by the time he was, 30 years old or something stupid. That's an exaggeration, but whatever. And I was out hunting with him, and he runs ELs, and I was hunting thick timber in my elk spot that I found a lot of success in getting into elk. And he's like, "You see that elk?" And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, "That elk right there, that's fucking staring at you right now. There's elk right there." I'm like just staring at this thing through my, $400 binoculars. And he just hands me his yells, and I was like, whoa, I can count tines now. Like these things are like night vision compared to what I'm using. This is insane. And from that, like I went out, bought good binos, and then from that moment forward, like those things were just glued to my face, even hunting timber, you know. It's like looking into every crevice, crack hole, and everything. And being here on the coast of BC where I am, I mean, we hunt a ton of thick cover, and you can see into that stuff with good quality binos, man.
Yeah, and I'm not fucking bashing Mavin, so just get that straight. Like I think Mavin are good for what they are. So, but I'm just saying, when these people ask Snyder on his fucking Q&A, they're like, "Oh, what should I get, the Mavin B2s or fucking Swirl ELs?" Like, you're talking about a fucking Ferrari and a 1998 Ford F-150. Like, there's a fucking difference in what you got here.
Yeah, and I would agree. The guys at Maven are awesome, and that's one of the best optics, if not the best, for the money. And that's what I tell people: if that's what you can afford, that is great. But again, I've got my first and only new truck I've ever bought was far overboard. I have a Shelby Ford Raptor.
Giddy up.
It is not an F-150. Okay. I paid for what it had. Did I need it? Probably not. Is it overboard? Hell yes. But again, when you're looking at you can't say, well, it looks like the F-150 is about the same as that Raptor Baja. I think I'm just going to go and get the F-150. Well, it's not the same, and you can prove it, right? It's very quantifiable. And so if the F-150 is what you can afford, well, hell yeah, it's going to get you the trailhead into work, and it's got AC, but it's not the Raptor Baja or the Dodge TRX or whatever you're rubbing some funk on, whatever model you like or brand. And when guys, literally what Wasey said is exactly right. I am looking at getting X, Y, and Z. X and Y are so far away from Z. The fact that you brought it up in the conversation is like, okay, you've been reading way too many paid advertisers. You're listening to influencers way too much.
Yeah. It's a good thing that me and Wasey have, careers and jobs and shit, 'cause we're not going to make any money off this fucking podcast the way we're talking shit about stuff.
It's true.
It's a good thing we get a deal on backpacks, though, man. That's good.
I'm not in the business of pushing shit either.
No, we wouldn't anyways. You know what I'm saying? You're never gonna see a gritty pop-up video from us. We're never gonna be like, check out this. Whatever.
But that's also one of the reasons why you guys are doing as well as you are for a newer podcast. People get tired of bullshit, right? I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, people may think I'm an asshole, but at least I'm an honest one. Like, I try not to ever, and I get to, I'm lucky I get to test a lot of stuff, but like, when somebody calls to me and says, "Hey, I'm looking at getting, top to bottom brand new gear," is Sitka, or, I hate to even use a K word, Kuiu, or who, whatever. Of course that gear is great. Do you need that gear? Well, you can reinvent the wheel and get some pretty good shit without spending a crap ton of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not. So since we're burning sponsorships here,
oh boy,
I'm not a fucking Kuiu guy. Nothing against the gear. I think Kuiu probably is good gear. I know lots of guys that wear it and say good things about it, but I'm just not a fan of the fucking people that run the show. And me and Aaron have talked about this, because Aaron does get this question a lot. Why does he not like Kuiu? And it's the same. Me and Aaron have the exact same reason why. But I think their gear is probably good enough stuff. on high end gear.
Yeah, it's not the gear. It's just specific. Well, a specific person in my case, but yeah, the gear's fine. I mean, I don't have any issue with the gear. When you're going to buy, clothing and things, whatever it is you're needing to upgrade, if you dig deep, when you look at pants, a nylon pant is what you want. Polyester is not bad, but a nylon pant is what you want. It breathes better, dries quicker, with like somewhere in the, 13% lycra or spandex category. You start looking at that. You can find multiple different pants that have those certain qualities that may not be camo, that will get you by, that are cheaper. Now, when you start looking at, fit and things like that, it's a little bit different. But do I think that some of the things that Sitka offers or certain camo companies are better or more well-rounded for hunting? Oh, hell yes, 100%. If you can't afford that, then do the best with what you got. The thing that kills me, and when guys grab, and this happened recently with a friend of mine, he went with a different, camo company, and he's like, yeah, no, man, it's basically the same. Well, that's a bit of a stretch considering I know where it's sewn and what it's sewn with. Mm-hmm. It's not the same. Can you get by with it? Hell yes. Is it great clothing? Yes, but it's not the same. So
yeah,
I'll tell you one thing here. I want to talk about Sitka for just a second, because I bought my first set of Sitka in 2008. I wore that fucking shit for 8 or 9 years. It was wore out, flat, it was just threads. I emailed Sitka. The guy responded to me within 15 minutes. He's like, yeah, go on the website, pick all new replacement gear. He fucking 100% warranted that shit without even asking. And the warranty for that right there, that made me a life member with them guys. Like, it's unbelievable, because I have a buddy that had a set of Kuiu Gators that were falling apart, and he tried to get them warranted. Kuiu told him to go fuck himself. So like, you got to look at, like, for me, customer service is huge. And I just don't know why a lot of guys shit on Sitka, because I mean, the shit's been good right from the jump, and it was the original mountain gear in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I have a great relationship with Sitka, specifically, Barklow and mm-hmm. Jay. One of the things for me with it is the mountain pants, but the Timberline pant is one that I use quite frequently. But it's a little bit colder weather pant. One of the sets I have, they actually talked to me about to stop wearing because it was a color they don't. It was a color they don't offer, and they were getting overwhelmed with people asking for it. But I used that pant for so long that it was one of those deals. Oh my God, $229 for a set of pants. I used it for 6 years. So mm-hmm. Get a calculator out, 365 multiplied by 6, and then you take $229 and divide that. That's a pretty cheap pair of pants. Yeah. They lasted. And I'm not talking, I'm in the field a lot, right? So those are seeing a lot of use. And you go to other, that's the thing. That's where I look at the investment. It's not the price. It's what the price will be by the time it's worthless. So if I have a set of pants or a top, and that top was $100, and I'm also supporting a hunting company.
Yep.
And then I divide that out. I used it for 4 years, and finally it's worthless. Well, if that equals 3 cents a day, I spent $6 a day on Copenhagen. Yes, that was a good deal. I did good with that purchase. And that's how I try to explain it when guys are purchasing stuff. One, you don't have to buy the whole freaking line, right? You don't have to have everything. But when you're going to buy your clothing, buy the layering system you need, meaning pants, a base layer, a fleece, a puffy, rain gear, and a few ancillary, a few off the wall things. If that lasts you, that whole system lasts you for 5 to 6. that's a victory. I mean, that is a good investment, even though the initial investment is like, holy shit, that's expensive. But in the long run, it actually saves you money.
The other thing that's interesting too, that I think the three of us will have a hard time understanding, is a lot of dudes don't live in their hunting gear the way that we do in the fall. You know what I mean? So, you buy a set of, I don't know, whatever, the Sitka Dew Point rain gear, and it's $1,000. That'll probably last you 10 years if you're only out in it freaking a few weekends a year.
Yeah. Now, in our case, the new Dew Point in BC will last a solid 30 days.
Barklow sent me Dew Point, and I think he said it on the podcast, or he texted me. He's like, yo, don't wear these pants in BC.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the great things about Barklow is he's not going to put, he's going to say it like it is. Like, I'm bringing the Dew Point on I've got a prototype set and the final set of Dew Point. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing them on my goat hunt. It's lightweight, and I don't know what we're getting into, and I'm not that worried. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to make it? Yeah, they might, but probably not. But I know that's somewhat disposable, meaning I know I'm going to take that prototype set, further testing for Barklow. But if I had to go buy a set, it'd be Stormfront, or, whatever.
Yeah.
In Colorado, though, that Dew Point, that'll last me 10 years. It doesn't rain here and there's no underbrush. Mine is falling off a fucking cliff. It's going to last a long time.
Yeah. I run like a more inexpensive, I mean, it's still expensive. It's still like $250, but a more inexpensive, like Mountain Hardware 4-way stretch zip-on rain pant. And then I'll run like a, Sitka Dew Point top or something, just because the bottom is what just takes hell where I live. You know what I mean? And I'll run a more inexpensive bottom that I don't care about with like a Stormfront Gator or something like that. That way or even even like an OR Croc Gator to kind of make that bottom real durable,
Mm-hmm. I still have Sitka coat and shit that's 13 years old that I wear.
I was just going to say too, I'm not a real brand loyal person in life, like Chevy, Ford, Dodge, whatever. I don't care. But like with hunting gear, I mean, with the exception of Kifaru, I run just a mix of everything. But lately, especially having been talking to all these folks now, like, I run Sitka gear because I like Barklow. Barklow's a good cat. I can ask him questions. I like the people there. They're real easy to deal with. I like to run Swazi because I like to get on the phone with Davey and bullshit for a couple hours at a time. Guy's the coolest ever. I mean, I don't think you'll find me in the woods without a piece of Swazi just because I like Davey so much. It's wicked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and a lot of the partnerships are like, when you say partnerships, like, I don't have any partnerships with guys from MSR, but I love that reactor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I found another company that built something equivalent to that reactor and they were cool and I could chat with them and they were more pro hunting, I wouldn't be using a reactor.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Just how life works. And it's the same, like, for example, Loophole. The only reason I initially started running that RX4, it's the full draw 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do think it is the best archery rangefinder, was Riza. I love Riza to death, and she works for Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation now, but I use it because of that. There are certain people, 100%, a main reason why I'm running, Sitka is it's still some of the best or the best, of course, but initially, when I started running it again, was because Barklow. He's one of the coolest dudes you could ever ask, to meet. Very helpful and very realistic. Like, hey man, is this going to work? Fuck no, that's not going to work. Use something else. And he tells that to customers, like, don't buy that. That won't work. As much as I'd like you to, spend the money, that's a bad investment. And you gotta, when a company's not out for just money, that's pretty, you gotta, hand it to them.
I mean, dude, you sell synthetic sleeping bags and you just told people to run down sleeping bags when the conditions call for it. The proof's in the pudding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to steer anybody wrong. And I'd be a hypocrite because I run a down bag sometimes, and I'm very candid about that. Mm-hmm. I don't run Kifaru shelters all the time. I run Hilleberg as well. And when people can't afford a Hilleberg, and I tell them what's most applicable for, their budget and what they're about to do. What kills me, and you guys can all laugh this, and you're not down here. If you go on a 7-day elk hunt in timbered area early September, and then all of a sudden you're giving advice to anyone that'll listen on what your gear list was, that it's the be all end all. I get it. You're trying to help people, and I applaud you for that. But 7-day elk hunting in Colorado in the timber is not much different than whitetail hunting. It's pretty easy. And so you compare that to a guy going on a mountain goat hunt at 13,000 feet. It's probably not a good idea to follow that dude's gear list. You gotta consider the source where you're getting your info from.
Yep.
So we've almost been on the phone 2 hours, many of which we cannot post on the internet. Okay, so we've had one ongoing discussion in between me and Wasey the last, year. He wants to take a TP on a goat hunt. What do you think?
Oh yeah, teepees. The Native Americans, because I don't think you can say Indian anymore.
I can say whatever I want. Damn it.
Those they handle wind extremely well. So, if you were running like a smaller on a goat, different. But that teepee for two guys, or the sawtooths for two guys, they handle wind extremely well, and it's lighter weight. And equivalent to, let's say, more of a 4-season shelter. So, if we were going, and especially if there was areas you could burn firewood, and it's wet, 100%, I'd run a saw. Like if Wasey and I were heading out, I'd run a sawtooth with like a cylinder stove, split the weight up. It'd be about 3.5 to 4 pounds each. And you'd have all the room in the world and be able to dry your shit out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about those big BC bomber mosquitoes up there. It's not that high elevation, right?
What time of year?
August.
Yeah, so like with the mosquitoes, that would be the only downside. And you can burn coils, or I've had actually guys pack in thermocells, which I'm not that committed myself. That's the big. That's where you got to weigh it out. Colorado up high, you don't have mosquitoes really, so it's not an issue. So that would be the only variable that you don't really want to kind of dissect.
Yeah. No.
Wicked.
100% agree. Yeah. Well, we better let you go, Aaron, so you can get some bows tuned and shit.
Yeah, they're not here yet, unfortunately. So I guess the only thing I would kind of make sure people, if you took anything from all this shit talking, is buy the best gear you can afford, and buy the gear that's applicable for what you're doing, not some jackwagon on the internet, including myself. Get gear from guys that are successful every year, advice from guys successful every year. And, if you're going to go ultra lightweight or you're going to go super heavy, you're going to have to pay the piper. So you need to be able to assess all of that and figure out what's best for you, kind of bounce it off of 3 or 4 different people, and then make your decision from there. Because it is an expensive investment, so you don't want to make the wrong one, because you'll go broke quick and get divorced. I've been divorced 4 times, so I promise that'll happen.
I feel like that's decent advice to end on there. Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you want to support the podcast, please check out the gear on our website at wildernesslocals.net.